Have you ever felt that familiar wave of anxiety when you're trying to connect with someone you're drawn to? Maybe your mind starts racing, questioning every word, every gesture, worrying whether you're saying the right thing or coming across the right way. In those moments, it's as if the ground beneath you begins to shift, and that confident, authentic version of yourself suddenly feels out of reach. You're not alone in that experience. In fact, that very feeling of being emotionally thrown off balance in matters of attraction is something people have grappled with for centuries. But what if there was a way to remain steady, to stay true to who you are, even when emotions run high? What if you could navigate the complexities of dating and connection not from a place of fear or overthinking, but from a foundation of inner calm and clarity? This is where an ancient philosophy, Stoicism, offers surprisingly modern and deeply practical wisdom. Far from being just abstract ideas, Stoicism provides a set of mental and emotional anchors, tools that have helped people for thousands of years face uncertainty with resilience and grace. And when it comes to attraction, these principles become especially powerful. They're not about pretending you don't care or shutting down your feelings. Instead, they help you engage more fully, more authentically, because you're no longer being pulled by every passing doubt or desire. You become the calm within your own storm. In this video, we're going to explore 25 specific Stoic anchors that can keep you grounded, centered, and genuinely yourself in romantic contexts. These aren't theoretical concepts, they are actionable insights drawn from the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, and other Stoic thinkers, tailored for the challenges and opportunities of modern connection. Whether you're navigating early dates, deepening a relationship, or simply wanting to show up as your best self when attraction is in the air, these anchors will help you maintain emotional balance, act with intention, and foster connections built on authenticity rather than anxiety. So let's begin this journey together and discover how age-old wisdom can bring newfound confidence and peace to your interactions today. The first and perhaps most vital anchor is what Stoics call the dichotomy of control. This is the foundational practice of sorting every single thing in your life into two distinct categories: what is within your power and what is not. According to the Stoic teacher Epictetus, our power lies solely in our own choices, our opinions, our impulses, our desires, and our aversions. Everything else, from our reputation to our health to whether someone likes us back, is not entirely within our command. It seems simple, but in the heat of a dating scenario, we constantly confuse these two categories, and that confusion is the very source of our anxiety. Think about that tension you feel waiting for a text reply. Your mind spirals. Did I say something wrong? Are they losing interest? Why are they taking so long? The Stoic anchor here is to pause and make the conscious distinction. You controlled hitting send on a thoughtful message. That was your action, your choice. You cannot control the other person's phone battery, their busy work schedule, their current mood, or their ultimate decision to respond. Investing your emotional energy in their actions, which are outside your control, is a recipe for anxiety. The stability comes from pouring your energy entirely into what you can control, crafting an authentic message and then releasing the outcome. Your job is to be your best self, their reaction is their domain. This applies perfectly to first date nerves as well. You can control your preparation, showing up on time, being present and engaged in the conversation, asking thoughtful questions and being kind to the server. You cannot control whether there's chemistry, if they find your joke funny, or if they feel a romantic connection. When you internalize this, it's incredibly liberating. You're no longer on a mission to make someone like you, which is an impossible task that puts all the power in their hands. Instead, your mission is simply to express your genuine self with honesty and kindness. The outcome of the date is simply information. It's feedback on compatibility, not a verdict on your worth. This shift turns a high-pressure performance into a low-stakes opportunity for genuine connection. Now, the second anchor builds beautifully on the first and might be one of the most transformative concepts Stoicism offers, Amor Fati, which translates to a love of one's fate. This goes beyond mere acceptance of what happens. It's an active, embracing stance toward every outcome, especially the ones we didn't plan for or initially desire. The Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of anything that is thrown into it." Amor Fati is about choosing to be that fire in the context of dating and attraction, transforming every experience, even rejection or disappointment, into fuel for your own growth and brightness. Think about how we typically approach a potential romantic connection. We go in with a specific, often rigid, hope for how it should turn out. We want the date to go well, we want them to text back quickly, we want the feeling to be mutual. There's nothing wrong with hoping for a positive outcome, but the problem arises when we become attached to that single, narrow path to happiness. Amor Fati asks a radical question. What if you could learn to want whatever actually happens, not because you're passive, but because you trust that every outcome contains a valuable lesson or a hidden opportunity? Imagine you put yourself out there and ask someone out and they politely decline. The usual reaction might be to feel a sting of rejection, to question your own appeal, or to vow to be more cautious next time. But with the anchor of Amor Fati, you actively reframe that experience. You might say to yourself, "Good, this is exactly what was meant to happen. It saved me from investing time in a connection that wasn't right. It's making space for something that is a better fit. It's giving me practice in handling no with grace, which is a crucial life skill." You don't have to enjoy the feeling of rejection in the moment, but you can learn to love its role in your overall story, its necessity in guiding you toward what is truly meant for you. This mindset is incredibly attractive because it radiates a profound sense of security and lack of neediness. People are naturally drawn to those who are comfortable with the unpredictable flow of life. When you genuinely embrace Amor Fati, you stop trying to control every outcome and instead become a curious participant in the unfolding of your own story. A date that doesn't lead to a second one isn't a failure. It's a fascinating chapter that taught you something new about yourself or others. An unexpected connection with someone you hadn't considered becomes a delightful surprise to be explored, not a deviation from your plan to be questioned. This deep acceptance makes you more resilient, more open, and far more interesting to be around because you're engaging with the world as it is, not as you demand it to be. Now, let's turn to a practice that might initially sound counterintuitive, but is arguably one of the most powerful tools for cultivating that unshakable inner calm we've been discussing. This is the third anchor, negative visualization, or what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. At first glance, deliberately imagining things going wrong seems like a recipe for more anxiety, not less. Why would you actively think about your date going poorly or about being rejected? The profound Stoic insight here is that by voluntarily confronting these possibilities in our minds before they happen, we effectively disarm them of their emotional power. We move from being passive victims of circumstance to active participants in our own emotional preparedness. This isn't about pessimistic forecasting or expecting the worst. It's a tactical exercise in emotional inoculation. Think of it like a fire drill. We don't conduct fire drills because we expect the building to burn down. We do them so that if the alarm ever sounds, our response is calm, practiced, and effective, not panicked and chaotic. Negative visualization is a mental fire drill for your dating life. By calmly and rationally walking through potential challenges, you're not attracting them. Instead, you're building a resilience that ensures no single outcome can devastate you or derail your sense of self. Here's how you can apply this directly. Before a date, instead of just fantasizing about it going perfectly, take a few minutes to also contemplate a few less than ideal scenarios. Imagine you arrive and there's an immediate, palpable lack of chemistry. Visualize yourself handling that with grace and curiosity, enjoying the conversation for what it is, a chance to meet another human being rather than as a failed audition for a relationship. Picture your date canceling at the last minute. See yourself calmly accepting the change of plans and using the suddenly free evening to do something enriching for yourself, like reading a book or calling a friend. The goal isn't to dwell on the negative emotion, but to rehearse your ideal Stoic response to it. The incredible result of this practice is a dramatic reduction in neediness and a massive increase in your ability to be truly present. When you've already accepted the possibility of a no or a disappointing evening, you no longer enter the interaction carrying the heavy weight of a specific required outcome. You are free to simply be yourself, to be curious about the other person, and to engage authentically. There's no hidden agenda or desperate energy because you've already made peace with various potential endings. This creates a relaxed, confident vibe that is inherently attractive. People sense when you're not trying to extract validation from them, and it allows them to relax and be themselves as well. Negative visualization, paradoxically, clears the way for more positive and genuine connections by removing the fear of the negative. This brings us to a powerful mental exercise, the fourth anchor, known as the view from above. It's a technique used by Stoics like Marcus Aurelius to gain perspective, to pull themselves out of the narrow, often overwhelming frame of their immediate concerns and see their lives from a much wider, almost cosmic vantage point. In the context of dating and attraction, this practice is invaluable for instantly diminishing the intense anxiety or despair that can accompany a romantic setback. It's a conscious reminder that while our feelings are valid, the story we're telling ourselves in the moment is only one tiny paragraph in the vast book of our existence. When you're caught in the throes of dating stress, maybe you've been ghosted after what felt like a great connection, or you're ruminating over a clumsy comment you made, your world can quickly shrink to the size of that single problem. It looms so large it blocks out everything else. The view from above is the deliberate act of mentally zooming out step by step. Start by picturing the room you're in. Then see your building or your house from the outside. Pull back further to see your street, your town, or your city. Keep going. See the curve of the earth from space, a beautiful blue and green marble hanging in the vast blackness of the cosmos. Now, from that impossible distance, try to locate yourself. Try to find that specific moment of anxiety you were just feeling. It becomes a powerful, almost humorous exercise. The worry that felt so all-consuming just moments ago is now an invisible speck on a speck, a fleeting moment in time that will pass just as countless others have. This isn't meant to make your problems seem trivial or to invalidate your desire for connection. Its purpose is to provide a profound sense of scale. It recontextualizes your current struggle, placing it within the grand, sweeping narrative of your whole life and the immense world around you. A single date, a single rejection, or a single awkward silence cannot possibly define you when viewed from this expansive perspective. This practice cultivates a deep and enduring resilience. It helps you to stop catastrophizing, to stop treating a minor romantic disappointment as if it were a life-ruining catastrophe. That person who didn't text back isn't the sole arbiter of your happiness or your value. They are one person with their own complex life and their own view from above, making a choice that is about their own journey as much as it is about you. By regularly practicing this mental zoom out, you build a default setting of calm composure. You can acknowledge the sting of rejection without letting it metastasize into a story that you are fundamentally unlovable. You can enjoy the thrill of a new connection without placing the entire weight of your future happiness upon it. You begin to play the long game, understanding that finding a genuine connection is a process of discovery, not a single high-stakes test. This grounded, panoramic view allows you to engage in the dance of attraction with a lighter heart and a steadier mind, knowing that no single step, however misstepped, can ruin the entire dance. And this profound shift in perspective leads us directly to our fifth anchor, a concept that might seem dark at first but is ultimately one of the most life-affirming and grounding practices in the entire Stoic toolkit: Memento Mori, the remembrance of death. This is not a morbid fixation on the end, but a powerful meditation on the precious, finite nature of time. The Stoics believed that regularly contemplating our own mortality is the ultimate catalyst for living with urgency, clarity, and profound authenticity. When applied to the world of dating and attraction, this practice acts like a truth serum for our intentions, instantly vaporizing petty games, superficial anxieties, and the fear of rejection by reminding us of what truly matters. Consider how much time we often waste in the early stages of a potential connection. We play it cool, waiting a prescribed number of hours before replying to a message to appear less eager. We hide our true interests or opinions for fear they might not align perfectly with the other person's. We agonize over crafting a perfect, curated image rather than simply presenting our genuine, imperfect selves. All of these behaviors stem from a place of fear and a subconscious belief that we have an infinite amount of time to figure things out. Memento Mori shatters that illusion. It asks a simple, piercing question: if you knew your time or theirs was severely limited, would you really be spending it on this? Imagine you are on a date. Normally, your mind might be preoccupied with concerns about whether they like you, if you're making a good impression, or what the next step might be. Now, introduce the anchor of Memento Mori. Silently remind yourself, this moment is fleeting, this conversation is unique and will never happen again in exactly this way. One day, it will be a memory. This isn't a sad thought, it's a focusing one. It pulls you out of your head and directly into the present moment. Suddenly, the quality of the connection becomes paramount. You listen more intently because you truly want to hear what this other human being has to say. You speak more honestly because there's no time for pretense. You become more courageous, perhaps sharing a vulnerable thought or a genuine compliment you might have otherwise held back. The stakes feel simultaneously higher and lower, because the moment is precious, and lower because the superficial outcomes matter so much less. This practice cultivates a powerful form of attraction that is rooted in realness. People are instinctively drawn to those who are fully present and unguarded, who aren't trying to manage perceptions or follow a hidden script. When you interact with someone from a place informed by Memento Mori, you are not seeking their validation to fill a void. You are offering them the gift of your genuine attention. You are essentially saying, my time is limited and valuable, and I am choosing to spend this part of it with you fully. That is an incredibly compelling and attractive energy. It cuts through the noise of modern dating and allows for a connection that is immediate and deep, precisely because it is built on the honest foundation of two people recognizing the temporary, beautiful opportunity they have to know one another. This brings us to a principle that is often misunderstood but is absolutely central to the Stoic way of life, our sixth anchor: practicing indifference to externals. Now, the word indifference here is crucial to unpack. In modern English, it often carries a negative connotation, suggesting apathy, coldness, or a lack of care. But Stoic indifference, or adiaphora, is something entirely different and far more empowering. It doesn't mean you don't prefer certain outcomes. Of course, you'd prefer a great date to a bad one, or a reciprocated affection to rejection. Rather, it means you refuse to let your fundamental happiness, your self-worth, and your inner peace become dependent on those external outcomes. It's the practice of making your core value completely self-contained, derived from your own character and actions, rather than borrowed from the approval or actions of others. Think about the typical metrics we use to measure our success in dating. How many matches we get, how quickly someone replies, whether a first date leads to a second, whether a relationship lasts. The Stoics would call these preferred indifference. They are things it's perfectly rational to prefer and work towards, but they are indifferent to your moral character and your ability to live a good life. You can be a virtuous, courageous, wise, and just person regardless of whether you are single or in a relationship. You can live with integrity whether you have 5 matches on an app or 50. When you mistakenly tie your self-worth to these external metrics, you hand over the keys to your emotional state to forces you cannot control. You become a puppet, and your strings are pulled by every swipe, every text, and every date. Practicing indifference is about cutting those strings and choosing to dance to your own music. So how does this look in practice? It means going on a date and shifting your entire focus from "do they like me?" to "am I acting in accordance with my values?" Your internal scorecard changes. Instead of anxiously monitoring their reactions for signs of approval, you monitor your own behavior. Was I kind? Was I honest? Was I genuinely curious about this person? Did I listen well? Did I present my authentic self without pretense or performance? These are the only things that are truly within your control and are the actual source of virtuous character. The miraculous side effect of this internal focus is that it generates a profound and magnetic form of confidence. This isn't the loud, boastful confidence of someone trying to prove their worth. It's the quiet, unshakable confidence of someone who knows their worth is not up for debate. It's a self-contained confidence that is completely independent of the result of the date. This makes you incredibly attractive because it eliminates neediness, which is perhaps the single biggest attraction killer. People can sense when you are seeking their validation to feel okay about yourself. That energy is heavy and creates pressure. Conversely, they can also sense when you are simply offering your genuine self with no hidden agenda to extract their approval. That energy is light, free, and inviting. When you are indifferent to the external outcome of whether they like you because your self-esteem is already intact, you are free to actually like them, to be truly present and connected. This is the ultimate paradox of Stoic indifference. By ceasing to need a specific result to feel good, you dramatically increase the likelihood of creating a genuine, positive connection. You become more attractive by caring less about being attractive in the superficial sense and more about being a good human being. Your character, your virtue, becomes the anchor, and everything else, the matches, the dates, the relationships, simply becomes the natural and often wonderful external echo of that solid internal foundation. This brings us to a profound and deeply transformative Stoic anchor, one that gets to the very heart of why we often feel so emotionally tossed about in the first place. This is the 7th anchor, the discipline of desire. While the previous anchors help us manage our reactions, this practice addresses the source, our desires themselves. The Stoics believed that much of our suffering stems not from events, but from our misguided desires, from wanting things that are not within our power to obtain or keep. Epictetus taught that the chief task in life is to identify and separate our desires, to ensure that we only truly, deeply want things that are virtuous and entirely up to us. In the context of modern dating, this is nothing short of a revolutionary recalibration of our entire approach to connection. We often enter the dating world with a specific, burning desire directed squarely at an external outcome. I want this specific person to like me. I want this date to lead to a relationship. I want to be chosen. This seems natural, but from a Stoic perspective, it's a recipe for anxiety and frustration. Why? Because that desire is aimed at something you do not ultimately control: another person's free will, feelings, and choices. You can influence it, but you cannot command it. The discipline of desire asks us to perform a subtle but powerful mental shift. Instead of desiring the outcome to be wanted, we train ourselves to desire the action, to be virtuous in our wanting. We shift from wanting a specific person to simply wanting to be our best, most authentic selves, regardless of how the other person responds. Let's make this practical. Imagine you're attracted to someone. The undisciplined desire screams, "I must make them feel the same way." This desire puts you on edge. It makes you performative, anxious, and needy. Now apply the discipline of desire. You pause and reframe that want. Your new disciplined desire becomes, I want to act with courage by initiating a conversation. I want to exercise curiosity by truly getting to know them. I want to practice kindness and respect in all my interactions. I want to embody honesty by presenting my genuine self. Do you see the monumental difference? The focus of your desire has moved from their internal state, which you cannot control, to your own actions and character, which you can. You are no longer a supplicant hoping for a favorable outcome. You are an active agent living out your values. This shift is incredibly liberating. Your sense of success is no longer tied to whether you get a second date or a text back. Your success is measured the moment you walk away from the interaction by asking yourself a simple question: did I act in accordance with my values? If the answer is yes, then you have already achieved your desired outcome. You have succeeded. Their response becomes mere data, interesting perhaps, but not a verdict on your performance. This doesn't mean you become cold or unfeeling. You can still profoundly hope for a connection and feel disappointment if it doesn't happen. But that hope is now a preferred indifferent, a light preference rather than a life or death need. The core of your desire, your deepest want, has been satisfied by your own virtuous behavior. This disciplined approach naturally cultivates the most attractive quality of all, non-neediness. When your primary desire is to be virtuous rather than to be validated, you project a sense of wholeness and self-containment. People are drawn to those who are not trying to extract something from them. It creates a space for genuine connection to flourish because both people are free to be themselves without the pressure of unmet expectations. Ultimately, the discipline of desire teaches us that the most important relationship we will ever navigate is the one we have with ourselves. By focusing our desires on our own character, we build an unshakable foundation of self-respect, and from that solid ground, we can engage with others not from a place of lack, but from a place of abundance, offering the best of who we are without demanding anything in return. Building on this transformative discipline of mastering our inner wants, we arrive at a companion practice that focuses squarely on our external behavior, our eighth anchor, the discipline of action. If the discipline of desire is about aligning what we want with what is virtuous, the discipline of action is about aligning what we do with that same virtue. The Stoics called this right action according to nature, which simply means acting in harmony with our highest human nature, our capacity for reason, justice, courage, and wisdom. In the unpredictable theater of dating, this principle becomes a powerful compass, guiding us to act with integrity and character, not as a strategy to get a specific result, but because it is the right way to be a human being, regardless of the outcome. This is where the Stoic path truly diverges from modern dating advice. So much conventional wisdom is tactical and outcome-focused. What to text to get a reply, what to wear to impress, what to say to secure a second date. The discipline of action ignores this entirely. Its sole concern is the moral quality of the action itself. Your mission is not to win someone over. Your mission is to interact with them in a way you can be proud of when you look at yourself in the mirror that night. The profound insight here is that this is not a sacrifice. It is the very thing that builds an unshakable and deeply attractive form of self-respect. Let's make this concrete. Imagine you're on a date and the conversation turns to a topic where you and the other person have a fundamental disagreement, perhaps a political issue or a core life value. The easy, outcome-focused action might be to nod along, soften your own stance, or even pretend to agree to avoid conflict and keep the date pleasant. The discipline of action, however, asks a different question. What does virtue require here? It likely requires honesty and courage. So you might choose to articulate your differing perspective respectfully, without heat or a need to convince them. You could say, that's a really interesting point. I see it a bit differently, actually. I tend to think that. You state your truth kindly and then allow the difference to simply exist. In the short term, this might feel risky. It might, in some cases, even lead to the date ending without further interest. But the Stoic anchor asks you to value something far greater than short-term approval, your own integrity. When you choose the virtuous action, honesty over pretense, courage over comfort, you make a deposit into your own bank of self-respect. You prove to yourself that your character is more important than any single romantic opportunity. And that act, repeated over time, forges an identity of a person who cannot be easily swayed, who knows who they are and what they stand for. This is incredibly magnetic. People are drawn to those with clear boundaries and convictions, even if they don't always agree with them. It signals confidence and authenticity. This discipline applies to every facet of interaction. It means following through when you say you'll call, not as a game-playing tactic, but because keeping your word is a virtuous action. It means ending things with clarity and kindness if you realize you're not interested, rather than ghosting someone, because respecting another person's dignity is a right action. It means being genuinely pleased for an ex who finds happiness, because goodwill over pettiness is an action aligned with wisdom. Each time you choose the virtuous path, you strengthen your core self. You build a track record with yourself that you are a person of principle. This inner integrity becomes your anchor. The noisy, often superficial world of dating outcomes, who liked you, who didn't, who swiped left, starts to fade into the background. Your primary concern is no longer how you are being perceived, but how you are performing your character. The ironic and beautiful result is that by focusing purely on the quality of your actions, you naturally become the kind of person others are drawn to trust, respect, and build with. You attract not just any connection, but the right kind of connections, those built on the solid ground of mutual authenticity, rather than the shaky sand of performance and pretense. Now we arrive at a truly transformative mental tool, one that acts as the gatekeeper for all the anchors we've discussed so far. This is the ninth anchor, the discipline of assent. In Stoicism, an impression is any initial thought, perception, or gut reaction that pops into your mind. It's the automatic, uncensored narrative that something is a certain way. The discipline of assent is the crucial practice of pausing before we automatically agree with and accept that initial impression as absolute truth. It's the space between the stimulus and our response, and in that space lies our entire freedom and power. When it comes to the emotionally charged world of dating, mastering this discipline is the key to preventing a single event from spiraling into a full-blown story that devastates your self-esteem. Think about how quickly your mind can create a catastrophe out of a simple event. You see that someone you've been talking to has updated their dating profile. The immediate, automatic impression might be, "They're not interested in me anymore, I'm not enough, this is going nowhere." The undisciplined mind immediately assents to this impression. It accepts it as fact, and the emotional cascade begins. Feelings of insecurity, jealousy, and sadness. The discipline of assent interrupts this entire process. It allows you to catch that initial impression, and before you buy into it, hold it up to the light of reason. You learn to say, there is the impression that this means I am not enough. But is that the only possible interpretation? Is it necessarily true? This is where you become a detective of your own mind. You start to interrogate the initial impression and generate alternative, more rational and balanced perspectives. Perhaps they updated their profile because a friend told them their photos were outdated. Maybe they are keeping their options open until an actual exclusive conversation happens, which is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. It could even be that they are feeling a bit insecure themselves and are seeking validation through more matches. The point is not to blindly believe the most positive alternative, but to recognize that your first knee-jerk interpretation is just one possible story, and rarely the most rational or helpful one. By withholding your immediate assent, you reclaim the authority to choose the narrative that serves your tranquility and your values. This practice is incredibly powerful when dealing with the sting of rejection or silence. The impression "they didn't text back, therefore I am unlovable" is a prime target for the discipline of assent. You pause and dissect it. You might agree to the first part, "they didn't text back," as a simple, neutral fact. But you vehemently refuse to assent to the catastrophic conclusion, "therefore I am unlovable." You rationally separate the event from the meaning you are assigning to it. The event is outside your control. The meaning you assign to it is entirely within your control. You can choose a much more balanced and truthful perspective. They didn't text back. I don't know the reason, and it is not my job to speculate. Their action is a reflection of their own life, preferences, and circumstances. It is not a global verdict on my worth as a person. My value is constant and not diminished by this single data point. Applying this discipline in the moment feels like activating a superpower of emotional regulation. It stops the spiral before it gains momentum. It allows you to experience a disappointing event without becoming consumed by it. This doesn't mean you become a robot. You can still feel a twinge of disappointment. But that feeling remains a passing cloud in the sky of your mind, rather than a storm that darkens your entire day. Over time, this practice builds immense resilience. You become less reactive and more responsive. You are no longer at the mercy of every unpredictable event in the dating world because you have fortified the one thing you truly command, your judgment. You choose your thoughts rather than being chosen by them, and this mental clarity and calm, more than any clever pickup line or perfect profile picture, becomes your most authentic and attractive asset. And this practice of carefully choosing our thoughts leads us to a profoundly positive and magnetic state of being, our 10th anchor, practicing gratitude. While the discipline of assent helps us stop negative stories from taking root, gratitude actively plants and nurtures a positive one. The Stoics weren't just about weathering hardship, they were masters of appreciating the abundance that already exists in our lives. Seneca wrote extensively about how we suffer more often in imagination than in reality, because we are so focused on what we lack that we become blind to the wealth of good that surrounds us. In the context of dating, this shift from a mindset of lack to one of abundance is perhaps the most powerful attractant you can cultivate. It's incredibly easy to fall into the trap of seeing your relationship status as a void. Social media, movies, and even well-meaning friends can reinforce the idea that being single is a problem to be solved, a state of incompletion. This mindset of scarcity is not only emotionally draining, but it also radiates a subtle energy of neediness. You approach potential partners from a place of wanting them to complete you, to fill a perceived hole. Gratitude works in the opposite direction. It is the conscious, daily practice of cataloging the completeness that already exists in your life. It's the realization that you are already a whole person, and any romantic connection that comes along will be an addition to an already rich life, not the missing piece that makes it valuable. So how do we practice this? It's more than just a vague feeling. It's a disciplined exercise. The Stoics had a ritual, often done in the morning or evening, of mentally reviewing and giving thanks for the specific goods in their lives. Marcus Aurelius began his meditations by meticulously listing the people he was grateful for and the virtues they taught him. You can apply this directly to your dating life. Instead of waking up and immediately checking a dating app, a gesture that frames your day around what you don't have, try starting with a gratitude list. It doesn't have to be about romance at all. Be specific. I am grateful for the warm bed I slept in last night. I am grateful for the friend who texted me a funny meme yesterday. I am grateful for my health that allows me to go for a run. I am grateful for the coffee I'm about to drink. This simple act fundamentally recalibrates your emotional baseline from one of seeking to one of appreciation. When you actively cultivate this mindset, something remarkable happens to your energy. You stop emitting a signal of "I need someone" and start emitting a signal of "My life is already good." This is incredibly attractive. People are drawn to those who are content and enthusiastic about their lives. It suggests that a relationship with you would be about shared joy and adventure, not emotional labor to fix a deficit. Furthermore, practicing gratitude reframes romantic disappointments. A date that doesn't lead to a second one isn't a failure, it's an experience you can be grateful for. Be grateful for the practice in conversation. Be grateful for the opportunity to visit a new coffee shop. Be grateful for the reminder of what you are or aren't looking for in a partner. Even rejection, as painful as it can feel in the moment, can be met with a sliver of gratitude for the clarity it provides, closing a door so you can stop wasting energy on a path that wasn't meant for you. This isn't about naive positivity or ignoring real feelings of loneliness. It's about choosing where to focus your attention. By consciously directing your mind toward the good that is present, you build a foundation of inner contentment that is completely independent of your relationship status. This grounded, appreciative state makes you a more joyful and present person, whether you're on a date or spending an evening alone. You are no longer seeking a partner to bring you happiness. You are seeking to share the happiness you have already built. That shift from looking for a source to being a source is the most powerful and authentic form of attraction there is. This brings us to our 11th anchor, a subtle but profound linguistic tool the Stoics used to safeguard their peace of mind while still engaging fully with the world, the reserve clause, or as the Latin phrase translates, the acceptio. In practice, this is the simple habit of mentally appending the phrase, "fate permitting," or, if nothing prevents it, to every plan and intention we form. It's not a statement of doubt or a lack of confidence. It's a conscious acknowledgement of reality, that our best-laid plans exist within a vast, interconnected web of events that we do not control. Applying this to dating is like installing a psychological shock absorber. It allows you to pursue connections with hope and enthusiasm while being emotionally prepared for any number of outcomes, dramatically reducing the potential for disappointment, resentment, and that toxic sense of neediness. Imagine how we typically set intentions in romance. We might think, "I'm going to ask them out on Friday, and we're going to have an amazing time, and this is definitely going to lead to a second date." We mentally write the entire script, casting ourselves and the other person in a specific play with a predetermined happy ending. The problem is the other person hasn't read your script. Life hasn't read your script. When reality inevitably deviates, maybe they're busy Friday, maybe the conversation falters, maybe they just don't feel the spark. The collision between your rigid expectation and the flexible nature of reality creates a tremendous amount of emotional friction. You feel shocked, disappointed, even wronged. The reserve clause prevents this collision by building flexibility into your expectations from the very beginning. So, a Stoic approach would sound more like this internally. I intend to ask them out on Friday, fate permitting. I will do my best to be engaging and authentic on our date, and I hope it leads to a second one if nothing prevents it. Do you feel the qualitative difference in that energy? The first version is a demand placed on the universe. The second version is a statement of your own intention coupled with a humble acceptance of the universe's vast and unknown variables. You are still committing fully to your part, the asking, the being engaging, but you are releasing your grip on the outcome. You are setting your sail with skill and intention, but you are not trying to control the wind. This practice is incredibly effective at dismantling the sense of entitlement that can so easily creep into our romantic pursuits. When we believe a connection should happen a certain way because we want it to, we set ourselves up for frustration. The reserve clause is a constant, gentle reminder that other people are independent agents with their own free will, complex histories, and unpredictable lives. Their decision to accept or decline your invitation is not a personal affront to your script. It is merely them acting according to their own nature, which is their absolute right. This understanding fosters a deep sense of respect for the other person's autonomy. You begin to see them not as a character in your story, but as the author of their own. The beautiful paradox of the reserve clause is that it actually makes you more courageous and more present, not less. When you've already made peace with the possibility of a no, the act of asking becomes far less daunting. The stakes are lowered because your self-worth isn't riding on the answer. You can ask with lightness and sincerity, precisely because you have already accepted that the outcome is not yours to command. On the date itself, this mindset allows you to be truly present. You aren't constantly evaluating the interaction against your rigid checklist for a successful outcome. You aren't performing for a future you're trying to secure. Instead, you are free to simply be in the moment, enjoying the unique human being in front of you for exactly who they are, curiosity intact, without the pressure of needing them to become your partner. This creates a genuine, relaxed, and inviting atmosphere where real connection has the space to grow organically, or to not grow without it feeling like a catastrophic failure. The reserve clause allows you to participate fully in the dance of attraction while always remembering that you only control your own steps. This powerful reframe leads us to our 12th anchor, a truly liberating Stoic principle that can completely revolutionize how we experience setbacks in our romantic lives, seeing obstacles as opportunities. The famous words of Marcus Aurelius capture this idea perfectly. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This isn't just optimistic wordplay. It's a radical cognitive shift that transforms every perceived roadblock from a point of frustration into a source of fuel. In the context of dating, this means learning to view rejection, ghosting, awkward silences, and bad dates not as failures, but as the essential raw material for building a more resilient, self-aware, and ultimately successful approach to connection. Let's start with the most common dating obstacle, rejection. The default, unconscious interpretation is to see it as a verdict. It feels like a door slamming shut, a confirmation of some personal inadequacy. The Stoic anchor asks us to consciously reject that interpretation and instead ask a different set of questions. What opportunity does this rejection present? It offers you the gift of clarity. It immediately closes off a path that wasn't meant for you, saving you weeks or months of emotional investment in a connection that ultimately wouldn't fulfill you. It's an opportunity to practice resilience, to feel the sting of disappointment and choose to move forward with your values intact anyway. It's a chance to refine your approach. Perhaps it reveals a pattern in who you're initially drawn to, prompting valuable self-reflection on whether your attractions are serving you well. The rejection itself is neutral. The opportunity for growth it provides is immense. Now consider the modern phenomenon of ghosting, which can feel even more confusing and disrespectful than a clear rejection. It's an obstacle to closure. While frustrating, this too can be viewed as a profound opportunity. The lack of an explanation forces you to provide your own closure, which is a muscle of incredible emotional strength. You have the opportunity to decide your own worth rather than waiting for someone else to affirm it for you. It's an opportunity to practice the discipline of assent, to refuse to assent to the story that their silence means anything about your value. It's a chance to cultivate empathy, perhaps considering that the person who ghosted you is simply incapable of difficult conversations, and to feel grateful that you are not entangled with someone who handles conflict in that way. The obstacle of their silence becomes the way to a more robust and self-validated sense of peace. Even something as seemingly trivial as an awkward date holds hidden potential. That uncomfortable silence isn't just a void, it's an opportunity to practice being comfortable with stillness, to realize that not every moment needs to be filled with chatter, and that your comfort doesn't have to be dependent on another person's conversational skills. A date where you discover a fundamental value mismatch is an opportunity to practice the discipline of action, to be honest and kind in your communication. to end the interaction with integrity, reinforcing your own character regardless of the outcome. A date that simply feels boring is an opportunity for gratitude, a clear signal of what you don't want, which is just as valuable as knowing what you do want. It sharpens your discernment. This practice fundamentally changes your relationship with the entire process of dating. You begin to approach each interaction not with the fragile hope that it will be the one, but with the curious anticipation of what it will teach you regardless of the outcome. You start to welcome the obstacles because you understand they are not derailing your journey. They are the journey. They are the reps in the gym of your emotional resilience. Each rejection is a set of weights making you stronger. Each awkward moment is a stretch increasing your flexibility. Each disappointment is a lesson in detachment. When you embrace this mindset, you lose the fear of things going wrong. You understand that things going wrong is often the universe's way of course correcting you toward what is truly right for you. This doesn't just make you more resilient, it makes you more attractive. There is a magnetic confidence that comes from someone who is not easily shaken, who sees every experience as valuable, and who understands that the path to a great connection is paved with the lessons learned from all the ones that didn't work out. You stop seeing obstacles and start seeing the way forward, carved right out of the very things that once seemed to stand in your way. This brings us to a concept that is the very bedrock of Stoic philosophy, and perhaps the ultimate destination of all these anchors we've been exploring, living according to nature. Now, this phrase can sound a bit abstract or even primitive, but its meaning is profoundly modern and deeply personal. For the Stoics, nature didn't just mean trees and rivers, it referred to the essential, defining characteristic of a thing. The nature of a knife is to cut, the nature of a vine is to climb. So what is the nature of a human being? The Stoics argued that our highest nature is our capacity for reason, our ability to exercise virtue, and our innate drive for social connection and community. To live according to nature, then, is to live in alignment with our best, most rational selves. It's about making choices guided by wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation, rather than being tossed about by every primal impulse and fleeting emotion. When we apply this to the realm of dating and attraction, it becomes a powerful call to authenticity, to connecting from a place of wholeness rather than a place of lack. Imagine for a moment the opposite of this living against your nature. This is what happens when you contort yourself to fit what you think someone else wants. You dim your brightness, you hide your quirks, you nod along to opinions you don't share, all in the hope of being chosen. This might feel like a strategy, but in Stoic terms, it is a fundamental betrayal of your own rational nature. You are using your reason not to discover truth, but to craft a fiction. You are prioritizing the external goal of being liked over the internal imperative of acting with integrity. Living according to nature demands the opposite. It means showing up on a date as the most authentic version of yourself, not because it's a clever tactic, but because it is the only way to honor your humanity. Your rational nature requires you to be truthful. Your social nature requires you to be genuinely curious about the other person, not just performatively interested as a means to an end. This principle also guides us in navigating the stormy seas of emotion that attraction inevitably stirs up. Living according to nature does not mean becoming a cold, unfeeling robot. The Stoics were not against emotion, they were against being ruled by emotion. They saw our rational faculty as the captain of the ship and our emotions as the wind in the sails. The wind is powerful and necessary for movement, but if the ship has no captain, the wind will blow it onto the rocks. In dating, this means allowing yourself to feel excitement, nervousness, or disappointment, but not letting those feelings dictate your actions. Your rational nature is the captain. It allows you to feel the intense pull of infatuation while still pausing to ask rational questions. Is this person truly kind? Do our values align? Is this connection good for me? It allows you to feel the sting of rejection without launching into a desperate campaign to win someone back against your better judgment. You feel the emotion, you acknowledge it, and then you bring your reason to bear on what to do next. Ultimately, living according to nature means approaching connection from a state of wholeness. So much of dating anxiety stems from a subconscious feeling that we are incomplete, that we need a partner to fill a void within us. This is living against our nature because a rational, virtuous human being is already a complete system. A relationship, in the Stoic view, is not about two halves coming together to make a whole. It is about two wholes coming together to create something even greater. When you live according to your nature, you are not on a desperate search for your missing piece. You are a full, vibrant, and engaged individual seeking to share your already rich life with another full, vibrant individual. You are not looking for someone to give you value, you are looking to exchange value. This shift is everything. It transforms your energy from needy to generous, from scanning for what you can get to considering what you can offer. It makes you attracted to people who are also whole and well anchored, and it allows you to walk away from connections that demand you sacrifice your integrity to maintain them. To live according to nature in love is to understand that the most attractive thing you can ever be is genuinely, unshakably, and rationally yourself. This brings us to an anchor that serves as the very soil from which all the others grow, a state of being that is both the practice and the prize of Stoic wisdom. This is the 14th anchor, the art of contentment. In a world that constantly whispers we need more likes, more matches, more validation, the Stoic pursuit of contentment is a radical act of rebellion. It is the deeply skilled practice of finding profound fulfillment and sufficiency within the circumstances of your present life, rather than forever deferring your happiness to a future where you have acquired some external thing like a partner. For the Stoics, contentment wasn't about passive resignation or settling. It was about a vibrant, active appreciation for the abundance that is already yours to command. When you bring this art into your dating life, you transform the entire endeavor from a desperate search for completion into a generous offering of your already complete self. The fundamental shift here is moving from seeing a relationship as something that will make you happy to something with which you can share your happiness. Imagine your emotional world as a cup. The anxious, needy dater approaches others with an empty cup, hoping they will fill it. This puts an immense, unfair pressure on every interaction. The content Stoic, however, tends to their own cup first. Through gratitude, virtue, and inner work, they fill their own cup to the brim. Then, when they meet someone, they are not looking for someone to pour into their emptiness. They are so full that their joy naturally overflows, and they can offer a drink from their own abundance. This is the difference between need and gift. One is a drain on another person's energy, the other is an invitation to celebrate together. So how do we practically cultivate this? It begins with a ruthless audit of your internal narrative. Notice the language you use about your singlehood. Do you say, "I'm still single," implying that your life is on pause waiting for a relationship to begin? The Stoic would challenge you to reframe that. I am single, and in this chapter, I have the gift of time and autonomy to invest deeply in my friendships, my hobbies, and my personal growth. This isn't just positive thinking, it's a factual recognition of the benefits inherent in your current situation. Contentment is found by fully inhabiting the life you have right now, not by perpetually peering over the fence at a life you imagine would be better. It means taking the energy you might spend scrolling dating apps in a frantic search and redirecting a portion of it into activities that genuinely light you up, learning a skill, immersing yourself in a community, mastering a recipe. When your life is rich and engaging on its own terms, you stop viewing a partner as a missing piece and start seeing them as a wonderful potential collaborator in an already great adventure. This art profoundly impacts the quality of connections you attract. Contentment is an aura of non-neediness that is unmistakable and incredibly attractive. People are drawn to those who are comfortable in their own skin, who aren't seeking rescue or validation. A date with a content person feels like a relaxed conversation, not a high-pressure interview. There's no hidden agenda, no frantic scanning for signs of commitment. Because you are already okay, you are free to be genuinely curious about the person across the table. You can enjoy the connection for what it is in the moment, without burdening it with the immense expectation that it must become your entire source of future happiness. This doesn't make you any less open to love. It makes you more capable of recognizing a healthy one when it appears, and more resilient in walking away from those that would require you to compromise your hard-won peace. The art of contentment ensures that any relationship you enter will be a choice, not a need, a conscious selection of a wonderful addition to a life that is already whole and satisfying on its own terms. Now let's turn our attention to an anchor that cuts to the very core of Stoic virtue and redefines how we engage with others, especially in moments of disappointment. This is the 15th anchor, practicing justice in relationships. In Stoicism, justice isn't merely a legal concept. It's one of the 4 cardinal virtues, encompassing our duty to treat all people with fairness, kindness, and respect. It's about recognizing the inherent dignity and humanity in every individual, regardless of how they treat us or whether they fulfill our romantic hopes. When we apply this profound principle to dating, it transforms our behavior from something potentially reactive and self-serving into a consistent practice of character that not only aligns with Stoic wisdom, but also magnetically attracts deeper, more meaningful connections. Consider a common scenario. You've been on a few great dates with someone, you feel a real connection growing, and then suddenly you're met with silence. The ghosting, the slow fade, the vague rejection text. The immediate primal impulse might be toward retaliation, to send a cutting reply, to badmouth them to friends, to vilify them in your mind as a terrible person. This reaction comes from a place of hurt ego, from the sense that an injustice has been done to you. The Stoic practice of justice asks us to pause that impulse and turn it outward. It challenges us to ask a different question. What does it mean to act justly toward them, even now? Justice here means granting them the basic human right to their own feelings and choices, even when those choices cause us pain. It means understanding that their decision to end things is not an act of malice against you, but an action taken from their own perspective, their own needs, and their own complex inner world, which you are not entitled to command. This might sound like a lofty ideal, but its practical application is profoundly grounding. Acting with justice means choosing to respond to a rejection with a simple, graceful, "Thank you for letting me know. I wish you the best," rather than with anger or manipulation. It means refusing to assassinate their character to soothe your own wounded pride. Why? Because the just person understands that your character is not defined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to respond. You are the guardian of your own integrity. When you treat someone with respect who has disappointed you, you are not doing it for them, you are doing it for yourself. You are making a deposit into your own bank of self-respect, reinforcing your identity as a person who operates from principle, not from fleeting emotion. You prove to yourself that your values are not conditional on everything going your way. This practice extends far beyond handling rejection. It applies to every interaction. Justice means being honest and clear with someone when you realize you're not interested, rather than ghosting them because it's the easier path for you. It's a recognition that they deserve clarity and respect, even if it's momentarily uncomfortable for you to provide it. On a date, justice means listening as much as you speak, being genuinely curious about their thoughts and experiences, and seeing them as a full human being with their own rich inner life, not merely as a potential source of validation for yourself. It means honoring your commitments, showing up on time, being present, and following through on what you say you'll do, because it is unjust to disrespect another person's time and expectations. The beautiful, almost paradoxical result of this unwavering commitment to justice is that it naturally attracts higher quality connections into your life. When you operate from a place of fairness and respect, you silently communicate your own standards. You become a beacon for people who value integrity and emotional maturity, and you gently repel those who are looking for drama or a passive participant in their games. People are drawn to those who possess a strong moral compass because it creates a safe and predictable environment for vulnerability to grow. Furthermore, this practice builds a profound and unshakable self-trust. You know, regardless of the romantic outcome, that you conducted yourself with honor. You never have to look back on a situation with the cringe of regret, wondering why you acted out of character. Your sense of worth becomes tied to your own virtuous actions, which are entirely within your control, rather than to the unpredictable actions of others. In the Stoic pursuit of a good life, practicing justice in our relationships ensures that we are building the very character that makes us worthy of the deep, respectful love we seek, and capable of fully appreciating it when it arrives. Building on this unwavering foundation of justice, we now arrive at an anchor that requires us to lean into one of the most challenging yet rewarding aspects of human connection. This is the 16th anchor, courage in vulnerability. When we hear the word stoicism, we might initially picture a stone-faced, emotionless figure immune to the sting of rejection. But this is a profound misunderstanding. True Stoic courage isn't about building an impenetrable fortress around your heart. It's about having the bravery to leave the gate open, to be seen for who you truly are, and to accept the risk that comes with that exposure. In the context of dating, this is the courage to be vulnerable, not from a place of neediness, but from a place of strength and self-possession. It's crucial to distinguish here between neediness and healthy vulnerability, as they are often confused. Neediness is an outward demand for someone else to fill an internal void. It sounds like, "I need you to like me so that I can feel okay about myself." This energy is draining and repelling because it places a burden on the other person to be your source of validation. Healthy vulnerability, on the other hand, is an act of sharing. It sounds like, "This is who I am with my strengths and my imperfections. I am sharing this with you not because I need your approval, but because I am secure enough to be authentic, and I trust that authenticity is the only real foundation for connection." This energy is inviting and attractive because it comes from a place of wholeness. It's the difference between handing someone an empty cup and asking them to fill it, versus offering them a taste from your own full cup. Stoic courage is the engine that powers this healthy vulnerability. It's the virtue that allows you to act rightly in the face of fear. And what is the fear in dating if not the fear of being seen and then rejected? The courageous Stoic doesn't try to eliminate that fear. They feel it and choose to act with integrity anyway. This means having the courage to initiate a conversation with someone you find intriguing, even though your mind whispers all the reasons you might be turned down. It's the courage to express a genuine, specific compliment, moving beyond a generic "you're cute" to something more meaningful like, "I really admire the passion in your voice when you talk about your work," even though it feels riskier and more exposing. It's the courage to state your intentions clearly. "I've really enjoyed our time together and I'd like to see you again," rather than hiding behind vague hints and hoping they'll guess your interest. This courage extends to sharing parts of your story that aren't perfectly curated for a highlight reel. Perhaps you've experienced a painful breakup or have taken time away from dating to focus on personal growth. The needy person might hide these things out of shame, fearing they make them look damaged. The courageously vulnerable person, grounded in their self-worth, might mention them matter-of-factly when the time feels right, not as a plea for pity, but as a simple truth of their journey. This kind of sharing is a filter. It quickly separates those who are looking for a fantasy from those who are capable of engaging with a real, complex human being. It invites a deeper level of conversation and signals that you are not here to play games, but to explore the possibility of a genuine connection. The Stoic knows that the opinion of someone who rejects your authentic self is not an opinion that should hold power over you. Their rejection is not a judgment on your worth, but simply a statement of their personal preferences or current circumstances. Therefore, the risk of being vulnerable is not truly a risk to your core self. Your value remains constant. This understanding is what makes courageous vulnerability possible. You can offer your true self freely because you know that if it is not accepted, you remain whole and undiminished. This is the ultimate act of living according to your nature, using your rational faculty to understand that authenticity is the only path to a real connection, and summoning your courage to walk that path regardless of the immediate outcome. When you do this, you become a magnet for depth and authenticity in others, creating the possibility for a connection that is built not on performed perfection, but on the solid, beautiful, and enduring ground of mutual truth. This brings us to a truly pivotal anchor, one that acts as a guiding star through the often confusing landscape of modern dating. This is the 17th anchor, wisdom in partner selection. Up to this point, we've focused primarily on how to anchor ourselves, how to manage our reactions, our desires, and our actions. But Stoicism is not a philosophy of isolation. It's a philosophy for engaging with the world and the people in it wisely. This principle asks us to apply our hard-won self-knowledge and virtue outward, using discernment to choose partners who are not merely exciting, but who are truly compatible with the life we are trying to build. It's about shifting our selection criteria from the fleeting and superficial to the enduring and substantive, from what simply feels good in the moment to what is genuinely good for us in the long run. The default, often unconscious, mode of selection for many of us is raw chemistry, that magnetic pull, that spark of physical attraction and intense conversational energy. There's nothing wrong with chemistry. It's a wonderful part of the human experience. But the Stoic would argue that chemistry alone is a terrible foundation for a lasting connection. It's an emotion, and like all emotions, it is fleeting and unpredictable. It can be triggered by people who are profoundly wrong for us, and it can be absent initially with people who might become incredible partners. Wisdom in partner selection means we don't ignore chemistry, but we refuse to let it sit in the driver's seat. We move it to the passenger seat, and we put character compatibility firmly behind the wheel. So what does Stoic wisdom look for in a partner? It looks for shared values above shared interests. It's far more important that you both value honesty, kindness, and resilience than it is that you both love the same obscure band. A value is a deeply held principle that guides decision-making. An interest is just a hobby. The Stoic seeks a partner whose core operating system is compatible with their own. Does this person practice the virtues we've been discussing? Are they courageous in their own life? Do they act with justice and fairness in their dealings with others, not just with you? Do they exercise self-discipline, or are they ruled by their impulses? When challenges arise, as they inevitably will this person respond with wisdom and resilience, or with blame and avoidance? These are the questions that wisdom asks. This is where the practice of negative visualization becomes a powerful tool for selection, not just for preparedness. Before getting deeply involved, a wise Stoic might consciously contemplate the potential challenges of being with this person. Not to be pessimistic, but to be clear-eyed. If they lost their job, how would they handle it? If you were ill, would they have the fortitude to support you? If you had a major disagreement on a core issue, would they communicate with respect? You are not looking for a perfect person who will never face hardship. You are looking for a person whose character is such that you would want them by your side during hardship. You are assessing their capacity to be a true partner in the Stoic sense, a fellow traveler who will navigate the inevitable obstacles of life with virtue, rather than someone who will become another obstacle for you to navigate. This wisdom protects you from a world of future pain. It helps you avoid the common trap of falling for potential for the person you hope they will become, rather than partnering with the person they actually are right now, as evidenced by their consistent actions. It saves you from relationships where the initial intense chemistry masks fundamental incompatibilities in character, which only reveal themselves after months or years, once you're already deeply invested. By choosing a partner based on the solid ground of shared values and observable virtue, you are building a connection on a foundation that can withstand the storms of life. The attraction that grows from this foundation is deeper and more sustainable than any initial spark. It's an attraction built on admiration for who they are at their core, a respect for how they move through the world, and a profound sense of safety knowing that you have chosen a co-captain for your ship who is skilled, virtuous, and steady, a true partner in the journey of living a good life. This brings us to an anchor that serves as a crucial safeguard for all the self-possession we've worked to build, protecting it from being eroded by the very intensity of desire itself. This is the 18th anchor, temperance in pursuit. In Stoicism, temperance is one of the 4 cardinal virtues, and it refers to the practice of self-restraint and moderation. It is the golden mean between excess and deficiency. When applied to the modern dating landscape, this virtue becomes a powerful antidote to the obsession, frantic energy, and loss of self that can so easily accompany a new attraction. Temperance is the practice of consciously choosing balance over compulsion, ensuring that your pursuit of connection enhances your life rather than consumes it. The opposite of temperance is what we might call the all-or-nothing switch that often flips when we meet someone we really like. Suddenly, this new person becomes the central focus of our mental real estate. We check our phone constantly for a message. We replay conversations in our head, analyzing every word for hidden meaning. We might rearrange our entire schedule in the hope of seeing them, or drop our hobbies and friendships to make ourselves perpetually available. While this feels like passion from a Stoic perspective, it is actually a form of intemperance and excess that disrupts the natural balance of a well-lived life. This behavior doesn't just signal neediness to the other person. It actively erodes your own self-respect because you are demonstrating through your actions that your own time, interests, and identity are negotiable, contingent on the attention of another. Temperance asks for a more measured, intentional approach. It means consciously maintaining the structure and priorities of your life even as you make room for a new connection. This looks like continuing your weekly gym session or book club meeting instead of canceling them for a last-minute date. It means not being available to text all day, every day, because you are focused and present in your work or other activities. This isn't a game-playing tactic to appear busy. It is a disciplined commitment to your own wholeness. You are essentially telling yourself and showing the other person, "My life is full and good." You are a wonderful potential addition to it, not the replacement for it. This measured pace prevents the kind of emotional overdraft that occurs when you invest far more than the connection has yet earned, protecting you from the devastating crash if things don't work out. Furthermore, temperance governs the pace of emotional and physical intimacy. The intemperate approach, driven by intense feeling and the fear of losing the connection, might rush to share deeply vulnerable stories or make significant commitments far too early. Temperance, guided by wisdom, understands that true intimacy is a slow-built foundation, not a switch to be flipped. It allows for a natural, gradual unfolding where trust is built through consistent, reliable actions over time. This doesn't mean being cold or guarded. It means being discerning. It is the difference between pouring your entire life story out on a first date out of a desperate need to feel close, and instead allowing moments of genuine connection to arise organically when they feel earned and appropriate. This measured pace is deeply respectful to both yourself and the other person. It allows you to truly see each other rather than projecting fantasies onto a blur of rushed intensity. By practicing temperance in your pursuit, you communicate a quiet, powerful self-assurance. You demonstrate that you are a person of depth and substance, someone who values quality over immediacy and whose respect for themselves is so inherent that it naturally extends to everyone they meet. This becomes the fertile ground for a connection that is not based on frantic need, but on a calm, mutual, and steadily growing admiration. This brings us to an anchor that turns every interaction, whether successful or not, into a masterclass in self-awareness and growth. This is the 19th anchor, the practice of self-examination. The Stoics were fervent believers in the power of daily reflection, a ritual of looking inward to audit their own thoughts and actions. Marcus Aurelius filled his personal journal with these examinations, not to punish himself but to learn, to adjust, and to ensure he was living up to his own principles. When we apply this powerful habit to our dating lives, we transform every date, every conversation, and every outcome from a passive experience that happens to us into an active source of data that we can learn from. It's the difference between simply collecting experiences and actually curating wisdom from them. The practice itself is beautifully simple in structure, though profound in its impact. The Stoics, particularly Seneca, recommended setting aside a few quiet moments at the end of each day to review your actions with a calm and rational mind. In the context of dating, this isn't about drafting a mental list of everything you did wrong or right. It's about asking yourself a specific set of clarifying questions that focus on the only thing you truly control, your own conduct. You might reflect, in my interactions today, did I act in accordance with my values? Did I present my authentic self, or was I performing a version of myself I thought would be more likable? Was I genuinely curious about the other person, or was I overly focused on steering the conversation toward a desired outcome? When I felt a pang of anxiety or jealousy, how did I respond? Did I assent to a catastrophic story, or did I apply the discipline of assent? This process of self-examination is incredibly liberating because it shifts your focus from judging the outcome to evaluating your process. Rather than asking, did they like me, which is an external metric you cannot control, you ask, did I like the way I showed up? This is a question entirely within your power to answer and improve upon. For instance, perhaps you notice a pattern that on first dates you tend to talk over people when you get nervous. That's valuable data. Now you have something concrete to work on for next time, something within your control. Maybe you realize that you consistently downplay your own accomplishments for fear of seeming arrogant. Recognizing that pattern is the first step toward courageously owning your achievements with quiet confidence. This practice makes you the active author of your own romantic development, constantly refining your character and your approach. The ultimate goal of this nightly audit is not to achieve perfection, but to foster progressive clarity. It's about spotting the subtle ways in which fear or ego might be influencing your actions and gently correcting your course. Perhaps you sent a text driven by anxiety rather than genuine connection. Self-examination allows you to see that, acknowledge it without self-flagellation, and make a more virtuous choice next time. It helps you identify your triggers. Maybe a delayed reply sends you into a spiral because it taps into a deeper fear of being unimportant. By examining that response, you can begin to disentangle the present event from the old story, applying reason to soothe the raw emotion. Over time, this practice builds an incredible intimacy with yourself. You become your own most insightful coach, celebrating the moments you lived according to your nature and compassionately course-correcting when you strayed. This self-knowledge is the bedrock of all secure attachment. When you truly know and respect yourself, you are able to engage with others from a place of wholeness, not seeking them to tell you who you are, but offering who you already know yourself to be. Now we arrive at a perspective that has the power to fundamentally reframe our entire experience of connection, dissolving anxiety at its very source. This is the 20th anchor, seeing others as fellow humans. The Stoics were pioneers of an idea called cosmopolitanism, a word that literally means being a citizen of the cosmos. This wasn't about international travel. It was a radical philosophical stance that every human being, by virtue of sharing in reason, is part of a single global family. When we consciously apply this lens to dating, we initiate a profound shift away from seeing potential partners as instruments for our validation or happiness, and toward seeing them as complex, fallible, and ultimately relatable members of our shared human tribe, each navigating their own journey with the same fundamental desires and fears that we are. Consider the immense pressure we often place on a single interaction with a single person. We build them up in our minds, projecting our hopes and fantasies onto them, turning them into a symbol of what we want rather than a real, multifaceted individual. This idealization is a form of dehumanization. We stop seeing them and start seeing only what they represent to us. The Stoic anchor of cosmopolitanism shatters this illusion. It asks us to take a step back and see the person across the table not as a potential answer to our loneliness, but as a fellow traveler. They have a mother and a father. They have experienced heartbreak and joy. They worry about their career, their health, their future. They have insecurities they hide and dreams they cherish. They, just like you, are doing their best to figure it all out, often stumbling through the process. This realization is the ultimate antidote to both idolization and demonization. How does this directly reduce anxiety and attachment? When you see someone as a fellow human, their actions immediately become more understandable and less personal. If they seem distant or cancel a date, instead of the knee-jerk story that "I did something wrong" or "I'm not good enough," you can access a more compassionate and rational set of possibilities. Perhaps they are overwhelmed with a work deadline just as you have been in the past. Maybe they are dealing with a family issue and their emotional bandwidth is stretched thin. They might simply be tired. Their behavior is far less likely to be a calculated judgment on your worth and far more likely to be a reflection of their own internal state and external circumstances, which are mostly invisible to you. This understanding doesn't excuse unkind behavior, but it does prevent you from automatically internalizing it as a verdict on your value. This perspective also naturally cultivates genuine compassion, which is a far more attractive quality than desperate neediness. Instead of approaching a date with the covert question of "Will you please me?" you can approach it with a more open-hearted curiosity. "I wonder what your story is." This shifts the energy from extraction to connection. You become more present, a better listener, and more authentically interested. You're not performing, you're engaging. You start to appreciate the person for their unique humanity, their quirks, their passions, their vulnerabilities, rather than just their potential to fulfill a role in your life. This makes the other person feel truly seen and valued, not as an object of desire, but as a person. That feeling is rare and incredibly magnetic. Ultimately, seeing others as fellow humans allows you to hold outcomes much more lightly. If a connection doesn't blossom into romance, it doesn't have to be a catastrophic failure. It can simply be a beautiful meeting of two members of the human family whose paths were not meant to merge in that particular way. There is no villain and no victim, just two people who shared a moment in time. This doesn't diminish the potential for deep, romantic love, it actually elevates it. When you do find a partner, it will be because you have chosen each other not as perfect idols, but as fellow humans, flawed, beautiful, and deserving of compassion. You connect not from a place of lack seeking fulfillment, but from a place of wholeness seeking to share a journey with an equal. This Stoic vision transforms the entire landscape of dating from a high-stakes battlefield of egos into a more humane, compassionate, and ultimately more connected exploration of our shared experience. This ability to see others as fellow travelers with their own rich and complex inner lives naturally invites us into a state of presence that is both deeply Stoic and incredibly powerful in the context of connection. This brings us to our 21st anchor, the present moment focus. While many philosophies and wellness trends today talk about mindfulness, the Stoics were early pioneers of this practice, understanding that our power lies exclusively in the present. The past is a memory, a story we tell ourselves. The future is a projection, a fantasy we anticipate. Neither are real in the way this current moment is real. When we apply this radical presence to dating, we unlock the ability to transform anxious, outcome-focused interactions into experiences of genuine, enjoyable connection, free from the heavy baggage of past disappointments or future demands. Think about where your mind typically goes on a date. It's often everywhere but on the date itself. It's replaying that awkward thing you said 5 minutes ago, or it's fast-forwarding to a hypothetical future, crafting entire scenarios about where this could lead. This mental time travel is the primary source of dating anxiety. You're not actually experiencing the person in front of you. You're experiencing a narrated story about them, and that story is almost always fraught with judgment and expectation. The Stoic present moment focus is the deliberate act of cutting that narration and dropping anchor in the reality of the here and now. It's about experiencing the date as it is, not as you fear or hope it might become. So how do we practically achieve this? It begins with a gentle but firm redirection of your attention to your senses. The next time you feel your mind starting to spin off into future worries or past regrets during a conversation, pause internally and bring your focus to something immediate and tangible. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. Notice the temperature of the air on your skin. Really listen to the sound of the other person's voice, not just the words they are saying, but the cadence and tone. Look at their face and actually see the expressions that flicker across it. This isn't about zoning out, it's about zoning in to the actual sensory reality of the moment. By anchoring yourself in physical sensation, you pull your mind out of its abstract storytelling and into direct experience. This practice has a profound impact on the quality of the interaction. When you are fully present, you become a dramatically better listener. You're not just waiting for your turn to talk or formulating the next clever thing to say. You're actively receiving what the other person is sharing, which allows you to ask more insightful questions and respond with more genuine empathy. People can feel when they have your full attention. It's a rare and deeply validating gift that makes them feel seen and interesting. Furthermore, being present makes you more authentically responsive. Your reactions become more natural and less calculated because you're not filtering everything through a lens of, "What should I say to make them like me?" You're simply responding to what is actually happening, which is inherently more engaging and attractive. The present moment focus is also the ultimate tool for relinquishing neediness. Neediness is fundamentally a future-oriented state of mind. It's the anxious craving for a specific outcome that hasn't happened yet. When you are completely immersed in the present, that future outcome loses its grip on you. Your sense of enjoyment and self-worth becomes tied to the quality of the current interaction, which is something you can actively influence with your presence and engagement, rather than being tied to a result you cannot control. You can enjoy the simple pleasure of a good conversation, the taste of your drink, the humor in a shared story, and if that's all that happens, the evening is already a success. You've connected with another human being, and that is a valuable experience in itself. This shift doesn't make you any less open to a future with someone. It simply means you are no longer sacrificing the real, tangible present for a future that is merely a possibility. By fully inhabiting the moment, you not only make your dates more enjoyable and authentic, you also become the kind of grounded, attentive person others are naturally drawn to, creating the very connection you might have been anxiously seeking all along. This brings us to a state of being that is both the ultimate test and the greatest reward of applying Stoic principles to our romantic lives, the 20-second anchor, practicing equanimity. Stemming from the Latin equanimitas, meaning evenness of mind, equanimity is the Stoic ideal of maintaining a calm and balanced mental composure, especially in the face of success and failure, pleasure and pain. In the tumultuous world of dating, where emotions can swing from the euphoric high of a promising connection to the crushing low of a rejection in a matter of hours, cultivating this inner equilibrium is not about becoming emotionless. It is about developing a profound emotional resilience that prevents you from being thrown off balance by every passing wave of fortune, making you not only more centered but also significantly more attractive. The roller coaster so many of us experience is a direct result of what the Stoics called being a slave to the passions, allowing our inner peace to be held hostage by external events. We get a good morning text and our entire day is bright, our confidence soars. Hours pass without a reply and we plummet into anxiety, questioning everything. This volatility is exhausting for us and is often perceptible to others, radiating an energy of instability and neediness. Equanimity is the practice of uncoupling your inner stability from these external triggers. It's the understanding that while you cannot control the events of the dating world, you retain absolute sovereignty over your interpretation of and response to them. Your calm center becomes your home, and no matter the weather outside, you can always return to its peace. Imagine you've had 2 incredible dates with someone and you're feeling optimistic. The old, reactive pattern might be to let that optimism blossom into full-blown expectation, to already start imagining a future together. Equanimity invites a different approach. You can fully enjoy the positive feelings, the excitement, the connection without letting them inflate into an attachment to a specific outcome. You consciously remind yourself, this is enjoyable in this moment. I have no idea what the future holds and my well-being is not contingent on it. Then, if a third date doesn't materialize or you receive a polite rejection, the fall is not from a great height. Because you never handed the keys to your happiness over to that potential future, you can acknowledge the disappointment without being devastated by it. Your inner calm remains largely intact. This practiced calm is incredibly alluring because it signals a deep and secure character. People are instinctively drawn to those who possess a steady, reliable energy. It creates a safe and pressure-free environment for a connection to develop. When you are equanimous, you don't bombard someone with anxious texts if they're slow to reply. You trust the flow of the interaction and respect their space. You don't become overly effusive or clingy after a single good date. You allow things to unfold at a natural pace. This behavior communicates that you are a complete person with a rich inner life. You are engaging with them from a place of choice and genuine interest, not from a desperate hunger for validation. You are, in essence, a port in the storm of modern dating, and that is a quality that attracts high-quality partners who are also looking for a true connection, not just an emotional rescue. Cultivating this doesn't happen overnight. It is the cumulative result of applying all the previous anchors. It is the discipline of assent that allows you to question the catastrophic story your mind creates from a silence. It is the view from above that provides perspective, reminding you that this one interaction is a tiny part of your vast life. It is Amor Fati that helps you embrace whatever outcome arises as fodder for your growth. When you consistently practice these skills, equanimity ceases to be an effort and starts to become your default state. You navigate the inevitable ups and downs of attraction not as a desperate passenger on a roller coaster, but as a skilled captain on the ocean, aware of the waves and weather but always guided by the steady compass of your own inner calm. This unwavering center is your greatest asset, allowing you to engage authentically, connect deeply, and walk away with your dignity and peace intact regardless of what unfolds. Now we arrive at an anchor that ties so many of these principles together into a single, powerful metaphor for unshakable self-possession, the inner citadel. This was a concept the Stoics used to describe a fortified core of self that remains impervious to the chaos and changing fortunes of the external world. Think of it as your own personal, psychological fortress. Its walls are built not from stone, but from your practiced virtues, your reasoned judgments, and your unwavering self-worth. No outside event, not a rejection, not a ghosting, not a disappointing date can breach its defenses without your permission, because you alone hold the keys to the gate. When you apply this concept to dating, you fundamentally change the game. Your sense of value is no longer a fluctuating stock price that rises and falls with every match, message, or date. It becomes a permanent, solid currency that you mint yourself, entirely independent of anyone else's opinion or actions. Building this inner citadel begins with a conscious, daily commitment to sourcing your self-worth from within, rather than outsourcing it to the unpredictable arena of romantic validation. So many of us fall into the trap of allowing a great date to make us feel incredible about ourselves, and a bad one to make us feel worthless. This is like building your house on shifting sand. The foundation is entirely dependent on the weather. The Stoic instead chooses to build their house on the solid rock of their own character. Your worth is not determined by whether someone finds you attractive or interesting on a given night. It is determined by your commitment to living virtuously, by your courage in being vulnerable, your justice in treating others with respect, your wisdom in choosing your partners, and your temperance in your pursuits. Every time you act in accordance with these virtues, regardless of the outcome, you are adding another stone to your citadel's walls, making it stronger and more resilient. Imagine you've just been on a date that seemed to go well, but then you never hear from the person again. The undisciplined mind might immediately launch an assault on its own citadel, trying to batter down the walls with thoughts like, "What did I do wrong? I must be boring/unattractive/unworthy." But if you've been diligently building your inner fortress, a different response is possible. You acknowledge the disappointment, the sting is real, but you then retreat into the safety of your citadel to assess the situation rationally. From within those strong walls, you can see the event for what it is. One person's subjective response, influenced by a million factors you cannot know and do not control. Your inner dialogue shifts to, "I showed up as my best, authentic self. I was kind, engaged, and curious." Their decision not to pursue this is information about their preferences or circumstances, not a judgment on my inherent value. My worth remains intact. The event happens outside the walls. It does not get to dictate the atmosphere inside. This doesn't mean you become arrogant or closed off to feedback. A strong citadel has windows and doors. It is not a sealed bunker. You can still honestly evaluate your own actions. Perhaps you talked too much about work or failed to ask enough questions, and use that information to improve for next time. But this is a process of refinement, not a crisis of identity. You are tweaking your tactics, not questioning your entire worth as a human being. The core of who you are remains safe, valued, and unassailable. This inner security is perhaps the most magnetically attractive quality you can cultivate. It allows you to engage with potential partners from a place of calm curiosity rather than frantic need. You are not looking for someone to validate your existence. You are looking to see if your already validated self finds a good companion in them. This shift in energy is palpable and profoundly appealing, drawing people toward the calm, centered confidence that only comes from knowing, deep in your bones, that you are already enough, and that any romantic connection will be a welcome addition to your life, not the source of it. Now, let's explore a particularly counterintuitive yet immensely powerful anchor for building the kind of resilience that directly translates into confident, attractive energy, voluntary discomfort. This practice, deeply embedded in Stoic training, is the deliberate and conscious choice to embrace minor hardships, not as a form of self-punishment, but as a form of emotional and psychological strength training. The premise is simple yet profound. By willingly stepping into small, manageable doses of discomfort in our daily lives, we systematically desensitize ourselves to the fear of larger, unpredictable discomforts that life, and especially dating, will inevitably throw our way. It's about building your resilience muscle so that when you need it most, it's already strong and ready. Think of it like this. If you've only ever walked on perfectly smooth, padded floors, the moment you step onto an uneven, rocky path, you're likely to twist an ankle. Your body isn't prepared for the challenge, but if you regularly walk on varied, challenging terrain, your ankles grow stronger, your balance improves, and that rocky path becomes not an obstacle, but simply the ground you're walking on. Voluntary discomfort applies this same principle to your emotional and mental terrain. By choosing to be a little cold, a little hungry, or to take on a difficult task, you are reminding your subconscious mind that you can handle hardship. You are proving to yourself that discomfort is not an emergency, but a temporary and manageable state. This proof becomes the bedrock of your confidence. So how do we apply this directly to the world of attraction and connection? One of the most direct applications is in actively facing the fear of rejection. The undisciplined approach is to avoid this fear at all costs, to only approach people who seem like a sure thing, to wait for them to make the first move, to hide behind a screen because it feels safer. The Stoic approach, fueled by voluntary discomfort, is to see the potential for a no not as a threat but as a valuable training opportunity. You can set yourself a small, manageable challenge. This week, I will compliment one person I find attractive with zero attachment to the outcome. The goal is not to get a date. The goal is to practice surviving the experience of putting yourself out there. The action itself is the success. Each time you do this, you are voluntarily entering a moment of potential social discomfort. And each time you walk away from it, whether the response is positive, negative, or neutral, you have collected concrete evidence that you are capable of handling it. The monster of rejection loses its power because you've walked into its cave willingly and discovered it was just a shadow. Another powerful way to practice this is through intentional solitude. In a world that often equates being alone with being lonely, the very act of choosing to spend an evening or a weekend entirely by yourself can feel like a form of discomfort, especially if you're actively seeking a partner. There's a societal pressure to always be out there, always be social, always be visible. The Stoic anchor of voluntary discomfort asks you to consciously defy that pressure. Plan a full day for yourself. Go to a movie alone and resist the urge to be on your phone. Have a meal at a restaurant with just a book for company. The initial moments might feel awkward. You might feel self-conscious, as if people are judging you for being alone. This is the discomfort. By sitting with it, by not fleeing from it, you accomplish two transformative things. First, you prove to yourself that your own company is not only sufficient but can be genuinely enjoyable. You are building a relationship with yourself. Second, you dismantle the hidden neediness that can seep into your interactions. When you know from experience that you can have a perfectly wonderful time on your own, you stop approaching potential partners from a place of desperation to avoid being alone. You approach them from a place of genuine desire to share your already fulfilling life. This is an energy of complete and total abundance that is utterly magnetic. This practice of seeking out small challenges builds a deep and unshakable confidence that is completely authentic because it's earned. It's not a performance of confidence, it's confidence forged in the fires of your own voluntary choices. When you walk into a social setting, you carry with you the quiet knowledge that you have willingly faced smaller fears and discomforts and emerged not just unscathed but stronger. This eliminates the frantic, performative energy that often plagues modern dating. You don't need to prove anything to anyone because you've already proven everything you need to yourself. You can be calm, present, and genuinely curious because the outcome of any single interaction simply doesn't have the power to define you. You've already passed much tougher tests on your own terms. This makes you incredibly attractive because it signals a profound sense of security and self-reliance. People are drawn to those who are comfortable in their own skin, who aren't looking for someone else to complete them or make them feel brave. By voluntarily embracing life's little roughnesses, You sand down your own edges of anxiety and neediness, becoming a smoother, steadier, and more grounded presence that others naturally want to be near. This brings us to our final and perhaps most beautifully compassionate anchor, the circle of hierarchs. Conceived by the Stoic philosopher Hierocles, this model provides a powerful visual for how we can understand our relationship to the world and everyone in it. He suggested we imagine a series of concentric circles. At the very center is your own mind, your inner citadel. The next circle out is your immediate family. Then your extended family and close friends. Beyond that, your local community, your fellow citizens, and so on, until the outermost circle encompasses all of humanity. The goal of the Stoic life, according to Hierocles, is not to tear down these circles and treat everyone exactly the same. That would be impossible and unnatural. Instead, the practice is to consciously and continuously draw the outer circles inward, bringing more and more people into the sphere of your concern, empathy, and care. When we apply this profound concept to dating, it completely transforms our orientation from one of acquisition to one of connection, dissolving the transactional me versus you dynamic that so often poisons modern romance. Typically, when we enter the dating world, we tend to place a potential partner in a very strange and isolated category. They are not quite in our inner circle of concern, but they are also not a complete stranger. This limbo often leads us to treat them not as a full human being, but as an object of our desire or a means to an end, the end being a relationship, validation, or companionship. We approach them with a subconscious checklist. Do they meet my needs? Are they saying the right things to make me feel good? Are they fitting into the fantasy I've created? This is a fundamentally transactional and self-focused way of interacting. The circle of hierarchs asks us to make a radical shift, to actively try to pull this person inward from the outer circle of stranger or prospect and into a circle much closer to home, to see them as a fellow human worthy of the same basic empathy and goodwill you would extend to a friend or even a family member. How does this look in practice on, say, a first date? Instead of sitting across the table with your internal judge's robe on, evaluating their performance, you make a conscious effort to see the world from their perspective. You remember that they, just like you, have a circle of hierarchs of their own. They have people they love and worry about. They have insecurities they carry, dreams they're chasing, and a history that has shaped them. They might be just as nervous as you are, hoping to make a good impression. This simple mental reframe instantly evaporates the adversarial or performative energy. Your internal question shifts from "how can I impress this person?" to "I wonder what this person's story is." You become genuinely curious. You listen not to find an opening to talk about yourself, but to understand them. You look for points of shared humanity, not just points of compatibility on a checklist. This practice is the ultimate antidote to neediness and outcome dependence because it gets your focus off yourself. When you are genuinely engaged in the act of understanding and connecting with another human soul, you stop monitoring your own performance so intently. You're no longer trapped in your own head, worrying about whether they like you because you're too busy being interested in them. Paradoxically, this self-forgetfulness, born from a stance of generous curiosity, is the most attractive quality you can possibly project. People feel truly seen and valued, not as a potential partner, but as a person. They feel the absence of any agenda to extract something from them, and that creates a profound sense of psychological safety where authentic connection can flourish. Ultimately, the circle of hierarchs helps us approach every interaction, whether it leads to romance or not, as a success in itself. The goal is no longer to get a date or a relationship. The goal becomes to practice the Stoic virtue of oikeiosis, the process of making what is foreign feel familiar and dear. Even if you only share one conversation with someone, you have still succeeded if you made a genuine effort to pull them a little closer into your circle of concern, to treat them with the kindness and respect you would offer any fellow citizen in the human family. This mindset ensures you never waste an interaction. Every date becomes a practice in empathy, a lesson in humanity, and a step toward becoming a more connected, compassionate, and ultimately more attractive person, not because you learned a new trick, but because you remembered a fundamental truth, that we are all in this together, and the deepest attraction begins not with acquisition but with recognition. And so we arrive at the culmination of our journey through these 25 Stoic anchors. It's important to recognize that these are not isolated tricks or quick fixes to be used in isolation. They are a deeply interconnected system, a philosophical framework designed to work in concert, each principle supporting and reinforcing the others. Together, they don't just change your approach to dating, they initiate a fundamental transformation of your entire relationship with yourself and, by extension, with everyone you meet. This isn't about learning a new set of techniques to get someone to like you. This is about embodying a way of being that makes you the kind of person others are naturally, authentically drawn to, a person of depth, character, and unshakable inner peace. True magnetism, the Stoics would argue, has very little to do with your profile pictures, your witty banter, or any external metric of success. It emanates from a much deeper source, self-mastery. It is the radiant confidence that comes from knowing your worth is not up for debate. It is the calm composure that arises when you are no longer tossed by every emotional wave of hope and fear. It is the genuine presence you offer when you are free from the desperate need to manage another person's perception of you. This is the ultimate attraction, not the anxious energy of someone trying to win approval, but the grounded energy of someone who is already whole, curious, and fully engaged in the shared experience of the present moment. This is the profound gift that Stoicism offers to the realm of modern connection. It moves you from a mindset of scarcity, where every interaction feels like a high-stakes test of your worth, to a mindset of profound abundance. Your life, with all its richness and complexity, becomes the main event. A romantic connection becomes a wonderful potential guest you might invite to share in that abundance, not the sole source of it. This shift liberates you completely. You can show up authentically, listen deeply, and express interest courageously, not because you need a specific outcome, but because you are living in alignment with your values. You become a curator of your own character, and in doing so, you naturally attract those who value character above all else. As we close, I encourage you not to see this as a finish line, but as a beginning. The real work happens not in understanding these concepts, but in practicing them. Start small. Pick just one anchor that resonates with you most deeply right now. Perhaps it's the liberating clarity of the dichotomy of control, reminding you to focus only on your own actions. Maybe it's the courageous reframe of Amor Fati, learning to embrace every outcome as fuel for growth. It could be the simple, powerful practice of evening self-examination, turning each day into a lesson. Weave these principles into the fabric of your daily life and observe how they slowly, steadily rebuild your foundation from the inside out. I would love to hear which of these 25 anchors landed most powerfully for you. Was it the mental fire drill of negative visualization that eased your anxiety? Or perhaps the cosmic perspective of the view from above that shrunk your worries down to size? Maybe the compassionate framework of the circle of hierarchs changed how you see the people you meet. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your insights not only enrich your own practice, but can serve as a beacon of wisdom and encouragement for others on this same path. Thank you for joining me in exploring this timeless wisdom. Here's to your journey toward a more grounded, authentic, and truly magnetic you.